Only reason I'm coming this side because this is where all the bees are. It's covered in bees this side. If you want to get,
it's good to show the difference though.
Well, if you want to get some images of some bees, there's quite a lot of bees going on here. And this is the interpretation that we always put interpretation on these as well. So this is made for 6 wheelie bins, and we keep it here as obviously as a trial to see what happens to the building over time. So this has been here about 7 or 8 years now. But as you can see, it's still completely full up of solitary bees.
Yeah.
You know, we're adding habitat, we're adding interpretation, obviously, and it's like we said earlier. It's the fact that people have to go to this to put their rubbish in. So it's a great place to educate people, or, well, that sounds slightly arrogant, but to allow people to see what could be their choice, you know.
Yeah.
And of course,
no, but it's so important, as you say. People have to see these things and understand them to appreciate them. You know, because if they don't know, if there's no information board, then they have no idea what it is.
No, absolutely. I think that is pretty vital, especially when it comes to invertebrates. It's quite tricky to get that thing across otherwise.
Yeah, and you can see on this side the lack of bees, obviously.
Well, they're less active. So the sun would hit this in the morning. So obviously that's when they'd be active here, and then they'd be obviously more active here. And you can see the sheep's wool that we put for bees to use for birds to use for nesting is half empty. So you can see that's constantly being used.
How often do you fill that up? Did you fill it up when you first built it, or I assume you top it up?
No, it's been filled up once in 7 years, I guess. Yeah, filled up once. So they've
wow,
used
so it takes quite a long time for them to use it.
Yeah, because I mean they pull out strands. It's quite, and there's only certain bird species that want wool in their nest. Obviously, not all bird species use that. But it's quite interesting watching especially things like blue tits who use it, and because they're quite a small bird, they get hold of a fibre and then they have to lean so far back to actually get it out of the cage. It's quite a weird process for them. But there's a few, and the other thing about, I suppose, we take for granted with living with green roofs is the fact that they're a piece of soil in an urban environment that then is going to pick up on other plant species that for instance, we didn't plant this species. This is quite an interesting thing. This is grass vetchlin, which is an annual that grows often in quite old meadows. It's not that common. So, and that's got quite heavy seeds. So. No idea how it gets up there, but we find that a lot on green roofs, that particular plant. It's really weird why that should be up there. But it's quite cool that, you know, and also the other thing to look at is what's also interesting is the vegetation on the ground. So some of this this grass on the floor, which we never planted on the roof, obviously you can see it's on the roof now.
Yeah.
So the roof takes on the look of the landscape around it sometimes, especially obviously on smaller structures like this. You know, not on the top of Dusty's Barclays Tower, it won't happen so much, but it certainly happens. It certainly happens on this scale.
That's it. But it just demonstrates how important this is for livening up a space. As you said, you know, if this is a bin store on a site, and bin stores typically are in the arse end of a site, shall we say?
Of course.
You know, it's such an important thing for brightening that space. Yeah. You know, even the metal, you know, really helps brighten the space up.
Yeah.
And then you've obviously got all the materials and things. And as we were talking about earlier, you know, you may not think it when you look at something like this necessarily, but you know, exposure to timber does have health benefits. So the more you can incorporate it into different aspects of people's lives, and the green, obviously, of the green roof, all these little things really add up and have a huge benefit.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we were talking about earlier about the sustainability of something is linked a lot to how long something is going to last. So we were really obsessive about these, of making sure that the frame, properly galvanised, going to last for many years, and the waterproofing for the roof there's not a rubber, it's stainless steel trays. Now there's a high energy use into producing them in the first place. I understand that, but 60 years down the line this will still be there, and how many replacements out of a poorer quality materials would have taken place?
Exactly. Well, you can make the same argument with concrete as well.
Yeah.
You know, I know some designers that are using concrete as footpaths.
Yeah.
You know, typically for smaller projects, not huge lengths of it. Yeah. But their argument is this is a highly intensively used area. Yeah. Actually, this material, while it's not the most carbon friendly initially, over time it more than pays for itself because it's so resilient.
I guess this is the question that someone's got to deal with regard to carbon.
Definitely,
How, what time period?
What's the time frame we're looking at?
How are we judging carbon?
Exactly.
Over 5 years, over 20 years, over 50 years? I don't know. But that definitely needs to be a conversation, doesn't it, before we can start talking sensibly about carbon use.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think there's that, because there's nothing worse, and I think this is ended up with a bad reputation on some green schemes. It's been a bit kind of, temporary and slightly fluffy and not really, built out of recycled materials, but recycled materials that are going to rot within 5 years. Well, that doesn't make sense, I don't think.
Yeah.
So you know, I think we really need this combination of robust materials, and then we can clad them with the green stuff.
Yeah.
Because then it's going to last, you know. In the same way as we use sweet chestnut logs instead of standard logs, because they're going to naturally last a lot longer without having to replace them. It's that kind of just a little bit of thought about, you know, the longevity of stuff, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned sweet chestnut, because that's come up in 3 episodes of the podcast already, as being such an incredibly important tree species,
really
and one that's really underused.
Yeah.
So it's got so much opportunity.
Well, we're really lucky that Dan and Duncan, the guys that I work with on the shelters, they've got a part sharing a little woodland down in Kent. So we go down there, we coppice the sweet chestnut, we bring it back here, we cut it up, and then we drill it. It's a pretty tedious process, I've got to say. But anyway, I can't imagine how many holes we've drilled over the last 15 years. But it's rather lovely, because we've been back to a lot of these shelters that are 8-10 years old, and the chestnut is still fine, because it's kept in a fairly dry state.
I was going to say, yeah, it's really important to point out that this overhangs it slightly.
Yeah.
You know, so it keeps a lot of the rain off,
yeah,
allows it to dry
and
off.
there's no places for it to be trapped.
Exactly, yeah, the air flows all the way through. Yeah, it's really important.